Hey everyone, I've been receiving several questions from different members about staking, restaking, how to get started, what's the intent and purpose of it, and so forth. So I wanted to take a minute to give a very high level overview and then open it up for questions for anyone who wants me to clarify or elaborate on any one particular point. So the intent of staking is that you have a list of assets. So this staking rewards, for example, shows you all of the assets that you have an opportunity to stake. And what you're doing is you're essentially exchanging your assets and you're allocating them to a particular network in exchange for rewards. So if you have ETH in your wallet and you want to be able to allocate those tokens for the security and the betterment of the safety of the Ethereum network, then exchange for that is you getting compensated in the form of rewards, right? And there's different ways of staking different assets. And basically, this website, stakingrewards.com, is, I think, the perfect aggregating, consolidating service that really walks you through every single asset that's generally available across all the different networks. So, for example, if you want to look at ETH, you want to stake Solana, you want to stake Cardano, Celestia, Sui, Aptos, you can do that. And then this walks you through like the price, the staking market cap, the staking ratio, which is basically the relationship between the total eligible number of tokens that are stakeable versus that are actually staked versus the total eligible population of tokens, right? So think of it as like a penetration rate. It's like 24% of total eligible Ethereum tokens are actually staked right now across all staking providers. Um, and you can look at this in many, many different ways, and I can go into much more detail later. But at a high level, this allows you to sort it by market cap, staking ratio, reward rates, and you can actually also do this by if you do reward rate and then you also look at the lower staking market caps, you can find a lot of very good, potentially promising undervalued gems this way. So this is like one of the ways that we look for potential projects that seem to have some, some strong value and then some merit to potentially investing in. So like Mental was, this is how I discovered Mental was by tracking the actual the high staking ratio and the high reward rate. But so there's a few things I want to mention. So that's point number one. Point number two is the staking ratio. So it's think of it as an inverse relationship between the staking ratio and the reward rate. So typically, as the staking ratio increases, so as the number of tokens that are eligible for staking are actually in fact staked across one node or some validator, then the reward typically will correspondingly decrease. So it's like as the more people that are participating in staking do, then you get rewarded less, obviously, because it just makes logical, like rational sense is that the network's already secure and you're just adding more security to it. So you're going to be rewarded less, right? And then the third point, and it's another important point, is the reward rate. So you generally don't want to invest in projects that have like an exorbitantly high reward rate because that's also corresponding with it being an actual inflationary or hyperinflationary token. So the higher reward rate is usually indicative of a coin that you're going to potentially have tokens that are going to be dumped. So a lot of those APRs or APYs where you see like thousands of percents, like those doesn't mean that you need to avoid them entirely, but you have to keep in mind that most of them are Ponzi schemes and that they're hyperinflationary assets. So those thousands of percents are going to be paid out, and then people are going to dump them on everyone. So you can't just keep having your entire total token supply be multiplied by a factor of 10 every year, right? That doesn't make any sense. So that's why typically reward rates of around like 3 to 5%, 3 to 6% are fairly good. I mean, that mostly covers inflation and like general cost of living. But that's the main staking. So if you click any of these assets, so let's go back to a normal like Ethereum based. So if you click Ethereum, it's going to give you the main statistics here that are important to look at, and then it tells you what your actual real reward rate is, right? So the real reward rate is after it's like a nominal rate. So it's important to just look at that. It's a minor difference, but it's important to look at that. And then the other thing that you can track here is you can also just put a hypothetical. So if you were to stake with Lido as a staking provider, your return would be 3.58. But if you were looking at like other ones that like P-Stake has 4.06%, and if you were starting with 10,000, then after a year you'd be getting $405, right? In addition to any price appreciation in the underlying asset that you've staked. So if Ethereum goes from 2270 to 4,000, right, then you're talking about close to a more almost a 100% increase in the price. In addition to your earnings are also going to appreciate correspondingly, right? And then if you scroll down, you also see all of the different staking providers that are here. And you can pick any of them and you can stake directly. So if you want to stake here, you can immediately do that. And if you want to stake using MetaMask or using any of the other integrated wallets, you can do that. So that's generally staking. And how it looks is if you go into Lido and you want to stake Ethereum, you're going to connect your wallet. So, and then you want to stake a particular amount of ETH. And by you staking it, it becomes STETH, right? So it becomes staked ETH. And you get like 3.4%. Your processing fee is 10%. So out of, let's say you make $100 in cumulative staking rewards from Lido, then $90 is what you'll actually receive, and then $10 is what's being paid out to Lido. 50% of that is being paid out to the Lido DAO, and then the rest is to the actual validating nodes. And that's really what you do. So you literally just put in like, I am staking 0.01, right? So I have 0.01 essentially staked as just to show you. And then, so that's Lido. So that's at a really high level. That's how Lido works. But each of them, Rocket Pool also has other offers. They have higher fees, lower rewards. Sometimes they have lower fees, higher rewards. Sometimes they have APY or APR bonuses. Also, they like Kelp. Like if you use KEPL, you can also there's other ways of like also restaking. So that's the next thing I wanted to very quickly cover. So a lot of people have been asking about EigenLayer, and basically, so this is just, think of it as one of the first platforms to restake. And the whole purpose of restaking is it allows you to repurpose those staked ETH tokens to help secure protocols that are being built on top of the Ethereum blockchain. And for example, bridging protocols or other decentralized applications that are being built on top of layer 2 blockchains that are operating on top of Ethereum. So you're restaking your staked ETH, and in return for you restaking and repurposing those staked tokens, you're essentially going to receive additional rewards in addition to your staked rewards through your main staking provider. So you're almost like double dipping, triple dipping, quadruple dipping. And for every decentralized app that you are supporting and you're securing, you're going to receive rewards, but then you're also going to absorb the risk that comes by doing so, right? And you're going to expose yourself to slashing risks, and you're going to be exposed to potential compromises with the actual protocol itself if it's acting maliciously, right? There's also risks with any form of staking. There's risks with the platforms themselves and the validators not being distributed geographically or jurisdictionally. There could be a very low distribution rate in the sense that the validating nodes or the operators are controlling a lion's share of the staking mechanism, right? Like this is the problem with Lido. So you're going to see risks all around. So none of this is risk free, right? So that's a very important consideration. But with restaking, you can see how it works. Basically, you have these active validator systems that are contributing towards basically commoditizing and distributing trust to decentralized applications, right? And that's how it works. So the way that you basically do that is you go into the app itself, and I can show you all the links and share everything with you, but you can learn about the protocol, you can learn about what restaking is, you can learn about how to actually leverage pooled security, and then how the incentive models that are in place. But really, at a high level, you just want to learn how to use it itself. Is you go into the app. Once you're in the app, you are then able to restake any of your assets. So I was showing you that I had Lido. So you could go into Lido and you connect your wallet. And once you connect your wallet, you would be able to show how much is actually there, right? And then you can restake it. Right now, it's temporarily paused in terms of restaking, but you will be able to. Usually, most of the time, it's working. But this is just LSD restaking. But there's also native restaking that you can do just directly. So using the beacon chain, of course. So you would be able to immediately deposit some ETH to actually restake, right? So if you're only running your own validator node with 32 ETH and then you want to restake it, you can do that. There's also LSD LP restaking. So basically, if you have liquid staking tokens that you are then using for liquidity providing, like on platforms like Curve, you can restake those. So you're talking about almost like a tri-layer restaking mechanism. And then there's also ETH LP restaking. So there's a lot. There's also Superfluid staking. I wouldn't say. I mean, if you really want to learn a lot about it, you can learn about. You can go through the white paper, but this is something that's I'm been very interested in. So, and I think so. The LP, the ETH, and then / token LP staking is part of Superfluid staking, right? And hopefully that explains it. But that's really what I think you would probably need to know about it. If you want to go into much more detail, you could learn about basically the how to ensure your actual staking positions. So you can ensure your staking positions by using different providers like Nexus Mutual or Chain Proof or Ribbon Finance, right? Or and Idle Finance. So there's like several, there's like half a dozen that I've seen that I've tried. The other thing about restaking that's very important to consider is that you're essentially foregoing withdrawal power. So you're actually deferring withdrawal power to the EigenLayer itself, and so which is a little. I think that's so we have to be careful, and the reason for that is you have to delegate that power to them to be able to penalize you if you're acting maliciously or if you're trying to coerce some form of coup or attack and collaborate with other validators to attack a potential compromised protocol, then they would penalize you through slashing, right? And typically Ethereum staking, the maximum slashing that they can do is 50%, and then the other 50% you're essentially putting at risk through restaking. So nothing comes without risk. But if you're so that's another big risk with staking also is that the actual value itself that you're staking generally is pegged 1-to-1 with the actual underlying token, but sometimes that ratio doesn't maintain and it falls. So it's sometimes you have to sell and withdraw at a discount relative to the actual price of Ethereum. So if you have one STETH, it may not be worth $2270. It may be worth like 2200 if the network is under attack. So there's just quite a bit that you have to take into consideration. And then you can also look at the operator statistics. They have scorecards. You can look at like validator nodes and how many are running, and what consensus clients are being used, and so forth. So hopefully that explains a little bit about staking, restaking. And then the last thing is there's also staking providers that you can use, that I've used and I still use. So you could use, so we talked about Lido and all nodes and so forth, but there's also like established providers like Coinbase Cloud and Blockdaemon that you could use to do institutional staking. And basically what you can do with them is you can interact directly with them, and you tell them, I want to be able to stake audio token, right? And the same thing with Figment. So if you use Figment, so Figment has staking. So you can go and stake different assets institutionally with these platforms, and they sometimes they profess to have like superior slashing records, and they have like consistent uptime and non-custodial staking and etc. But you have to make your own decision on whether or not you want to use those. But if you are looking at institutional level staking, I would think that it's definitely more profitable if you use some of those other platforms, right? This entire space is becoming extremely saturated and very competitive, as you can see with the rates dropping over and over again. But ultimately, there are a lot of different options that you could use, and I think you just have a lot of different options available. So if I go in here, you could see if I want to go and stake on Ethereum, you could do that. And you see the reward is a little bit more attractive than it would be if you were going through Fido. But you'd have to interact with them institutionally directly, and they're fairly responsive. So I know these teams, and they're good. They're good, hardworking, honest people, like the people from Blockdaemon and Figment and Staked US and all these other providers. So any questions, please don't hesitate to ask. I'm always happy to help.